Hey guys, how's it going? Jakson here with TMZ. We love the feedback we got in yesterday's video. Seems like a lot of you guys want to hear about the David and Celeste Rivas murder case. Now, this is a case that has been widely reported on in the last few months, and a lot of people are trying to stay up to date as much as possible, but there's a lot of new information. If you haven't been staying up to date, or you don't even know what this case is about, I will give you a very quick recap before going into the explosive details that we have uncovered recently. There are a lot of shocking updates to this case that I think a lot of people are going to find very interesting, so stick around to the end to find out. So on September 8th of this year, a Tesla was reported abandoned after it sat dormant in Hollywood Hills for over a month. The Tesla was subsequently towed from Hollywood Hills to an impound lot in Los Angeles, and after sitting there for a few days, there were complaints of a very foul odor. Upon further investigation of this foul odor, the front trunk of the Tesla was opened, and in there sat the decomposing body of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. After authorities investigated further, they found that the Tesla belonged to famous singer-songwriter David. Now, in the wake of this discovery, David was on a world tour outside of the state and subsequently cancelled his tour when the body was identified. Now, after this, evidence started coming out that David was in a relationship with this child. Pictures, videos, and live stream clips started surfacing from months before that indicated that they were definitely more than just friends. Considering that Celeste was found in a car that belonged to David and that they were allegedly in an intimate relationship, immediately the public identified him as the #1 suspect. But there's been a lot of public outcry about this case, considering that a conviction hasn't been made and that a cause of death hasn't even been identified. Now, regarding the cause of death, the medical examiner has said that the body was so badly dismembered that it was extremely difficult to determine what the cause of death was. Now, he also said that her fingers were waterlogged, indicating that at one point or another her body was partially frozen, which lines up with the giant freezer that we found inside of David's house, which is big enough to store a body, something of note. Now, because of how big this case is, it's extremely hard to digest all the new information and updates because there's so much information that comes out in a case like this, but we have all the new pertinent information for you right here, which I'll get into right now. So as you may know, a grand jury was assembled in the middle of November to hear the evidence that LAPD had against potential suspects in the Celeste Rivas case. Now, what we know is that there is a second suspect aside from David who LAPD thinks played a role in either the killing or dismemberment of Celeste Rivas. We are not allowed to say who it is, we're not at liberty to say, but something to note. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that the LAPD tracked David's whereabouts in the months leading up to the event, and what they found was pretty eye-opening. Now, what the LAPD found was that earlier this year in the spring, David took a trip in the middle of the night to a highly remote area of Santa Barbara County, where he stayed for hours on end before returning. Now, when I say highly remote, I mean that. He was in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't a gas station he could have gone to, there wasn't a building nearby or a hotel. When I say remote, he was literally in the middle of nowhere. But it's significant considering that it's come out as evidence. Now, I want to talk about something else. Something that a lot of people don't know is that we are watching this case with a magnifying glass. That grand jury is assembled in a court building, and we have people in that building. And the people we have in there have uncovered some crucial elements in this case. The first element being an appearance of one Robert Morgenroth. Now, when we got confirmation that this was the guy testifying before the grand jury, we did a deep dive into who he was, and it turns out that he was the general manager of Mogul Vision, which is David's record label. He was also the president of a company called Zara Brothers Travel LLC, which turns out to be David's touring company. Now, during the intermission of this testimony, Robert Morgenroth walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway, approaching his lawyer Evan Jeunesse, who was out there waiting for him, and said loud enough for everyone to hear the words, "She was very pushy on why I didn't call the police." He went on to recount how he responded, saying, "I said I didn't feel like I had the responsibility to do that. I just wanted to continue with the tour." Now, another person that the prosecution is highly interested in is one Josh Marshall. Now, Josh Marshall is David's second manager. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because Josh Marshall is the one that signed the lease agreement for the house that David was staying in. Now, the LAPD has said that the house is a huge piece to this puzzle. They've even said that they've obtained security camera footage from the cameras that are installed around the house. Now, after that happened, that's when the two suspects were formally identified, that's when the grand jury was assembled, so it begs the question, did they see something on that tape? Now, another big piece of information is that when Morgenroth was done testifying before the grand jury, he exited one courtroom and went into a second courtroom across the hallway. Now, the second courtroom that he went into is where a judge decides whether or not to hold you in contempt. Now, what's probably the biggest update yet is that an arrest has actually been made in this case, but not for the reason that you might think. Now, when Beth Silverman came out of this courtroom, she was visibly frustrated. Now, Beth said to Evan Janess that she was going to issue a body attachment to force a female witness to testify before the grand jury. Now, according to Beth, this is a female witness that was supposed to testify and show up on the day that didn't. Now, we don't know who this female witness is, but she is to be arrested if she hasn't been already. Now, the final element that I'll talk about, and this is something that has piqued everybody's curiosity, is the 55-pound incinerator that was delivered to the residence that David was staying in. Now, this incinerator, some outlets are calling it a burn cage, is big enough to fill a body and burn up to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, it's worth noting that this incinerator cannot legally be used within LA County, so it's curious as to why it would be delivered to a house and not a farm. Guys, it's been great reviewing the feedback on these videos. We love making these for you and keeping you up to date on the stories that you are interested in. Like I said in the last video, if there's anything that you guys want more coverage on, be sure to comment. My name is Jakson Buhaj. Make sure to subscribe to the TMZ YouTube channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.